everybody, and welcome to the 14th episode of Brent Ewing's Hey Buddy podcast. If you guys haven't been able to check out last month's episode with Jamie and Candace Pierce talking about the military and their experiences, give it a listen. It's a long podcast. It's about 2.5 hours, but you can break that down into a couple sessions, and maybe it'll help you get to and from work, pass the time a little bit. But it's a really interesting story from two very good friends and people that I'm proud of, and I want to thank them again for coming on and sharing their stories of their time in the military. Got a fun show for you today. I got to sit down and talk for about an hour with Wellston Mayor Charlie Hudson. It was the first time that I'd actually spoken to Mayor Hudson. We had Facebook messengered back and forth for a couple weeks trying to get this interview set up, and he was always timely with his responses and courteous, and I really appreciate him, coming on and giving me a little bit of his time to talk about Wellston, some things that are going on and some things that he wants to see changed in the town. And just by talking to Mayor Hudson for this hour, I got a good sense of who he is, and I really, he's got my support for sure. Just the way he's handling things, the way he's taking care of things, I really think Wellston is in good hands. Not that it wasn't with the previous mayor. Ms. Pelletier did a great job as well, but I feel like everything's on the uptick there, and hopefully we'll continue to see good things happen for the town. So with all that being said, here's my interview with Wellston Mayor Charlie Hudson.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Hudson.
Yes, sir.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well on this rainy day in Ohio.
Yeah, I just got a picture from my dad. He sent me. He said, "Here's what I'm looking at right now." He's sitting in a parking lot with a bunch of rain coming down.
Actually, I just pulled off the highway. I got tied up in traffic. My daughter's basement flooded, and the grandkids' PlayStation bit the dust, so I had to take the backup set to them.
Oh, no way, man! You can't have that in quarantine. You got to be able to play that PlayStation.
Especially with a 7 and a 5-year-old.
Exactly. That's kind of a babysitter in itself, right there.
It absolutely is. Absolutely is.
Well, good deal. I appreciate you coming on and doing this, and thanks for making the time for me.
Very, very welcome. Sorry I couldn't make it last week, but things popped up, but I'm glad we finally got together.
Good deal. So I just kind of want to jump right into some stuff, if that's cool with you. Just ask some questions. If there's anything I don't ask and you want to put out there, man, feel free to do that, okay?
And if you ask anything I don't like, I'll just hang up on you.
Fair enough. Should I tell you I'm a Michigan fan first? Will you just hang up immediately, or?
Yeah, I'm out.
We can be cordial for a little while, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, first of all, man, can you just give everybody a little bit of background about yourself?
Yeah, I of course, Charlie Hudson. I'm the mayor of Wellston. I moved back. I graduated from Wellston High in '75. Went on over to High University. Was going to be a history teacher, and ended up owning 144 Pizza Huts at one time.
Wow.
And I still own. We closed 4 because of the virus, but still have 29 Pizza Huts open in West Virginia and Ohio. Moved back to Wellston about 5 years ago. Actually, my 40th high school reunion, I came back and looked around. I was going into semi-retirement and thought I'd move back and see if I could make a difference in the city. And I moved back 5 years ago. Started a Wellston Main Street group with the former mayor, Connie Pelletier, and one of my former classmates, Valerie Crabtree, to revitalize downtown. And once I got into that, then I got on city council for a couple of years, and last year decided to run for mayor and got elected. Took office in January. So
here we are.
And here we are. Yep, absolutely. So,
very cool. I talked to my mom a couple days back, and she remembered the name. She said, "I think I may have graduated with him." But then when I told my mother's name was I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
My mother's name's Ines Perry.
Ines Perry, absolutely. Ines, I graduated with her brother Gilbert.
Okay.
West Perry. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And then I talked to my dad, and he said, "I think I played some softball with Charlie." My dad's Ed Ewing. He said, he's telling me some softball stories from years ago.
Small world.
Very
especially
cool.
in Wellston.
I know, right? So how long were you away from Wellston?
About 40 years.
40 years. And
Yeah.
was politics always something you were interested in growing up, or?
No, not at all, not at all. I never dreamt I would ever get into politics. As I said, I have a partner. We had 144 Pizza Huts. We had Cleveland and Toledo and all of West Virginia and Eastern Ohio.
Wow.
And when we turned 50, we started selling them, thinking we'd slip off into retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we got down to 32, we said, okay, well, this would be a nice sort of a residual income. Hired a guy to run them, and he bought a place down in Palmetto Bluff, and I bought a place in Wellston. Shows you which one of the two is probably brighter. So I moved back, and I just got interested in trying to make the town better. I mean, the town's going through some rough times. We lost the factories we had in town. We still have a giant food manufacturing plant, General Mills. Tostino's Pizza Rolls. That's the Tostino Pizza Roll capital of the world. It's the only place they make them. So 30,000 pizza rolls a minute. So and they employ about 1,000 folks. And so anyway, but the town had lost most of their businesses downtown. So we started the Main Street group to try to get folks to repurpose some of these buildings and bring some businesses into town. And we've done okay. We've gotten a few beauty parlors open. We got we got a florist back in town, and we've got different craft shops and things like that. And we're working on it. As a matter of fact, I just met with an architect today. You probably don't recall this building, but your parents would. It's the old Eagles building. It's a 3-story building on the corner of Pennsylvania and 2nd Street that I bought a year ago, and I just met with the architect there to put a restaurant, microbrew on the first floor, and then a little bit upscale apartments on the 2nd and 3rd floors. So then we have a new pizza shop open and different things going on.
Very cool. That the FOE building was actually a question I was going to ask. I knew that you had bought it, and I believe one of the King guys, maybe Jeff King, had been in there doing some things.
Jeff has taken it down to the bare bones. I think it was 96 tons of construction or deconstruction material that came out of that.
Wow.
Those long dumpsters. I think it was 13 of those long dumpsters we took out of that. It's completely gutted, back to where, we're ready to start. We're ready to start. We have put new subfloors in it, put a new roof on it. We just, as I said, met with the architect. We started talking about preliminary plans. Should be able to get that off the ground, hopefully by sometime in midsummer, so people start seeing some progress. And looking at 2 or 3 more buildings down the street from me to I'm sort of playing backwards Monopoly. I'm starting with Baltic Avenue and hope I find Park Place.
Right.
so we're going to pick up a couple more buildings. And I think 2 years ago we bought, Jeff and I bought there's a Carter lumber yard south of town at the intersection of 327 and 32. And now we have a Mennonite market, Homestead Market there, where they're doing very well in there. So we got that open up as a newer business, or an expanded business. They were in a little shop and they needed a bigger place, so we got that going. So I think we're doing some pretty good things there. We're marketing the old McNally sites. We have a couple nibbles on that. That someone looking for a 20. I think that's about a 70,000 square foot site, and we've got a couple nibbles on that. Hopefully, we'll get that sold in the next couple of years, bring a few jobs back to town.
No.
But those are things we're working on.
That's very cool because, admittedly, I've been away from Wellston for the past 6 years or so. I come back intermittently, but I kind of work doing travel work. I'm actually in Hawaii right now. I've been here off and on for the last 4 years.
That's tough duty.
I know, right? Daggone it. So somebody's got to do it. I guess might as well be me. But and I do Southern California work, things like that. So I'm not back in Wellston often. And admittedly, I've been super critical. Anytime I do go back, it's it's just so hard to see. And I know every town has changed since the late 80s, early 90s. That's just how it goes. With manufacturing jobs kind of, becoming more and more obsolete and moving overseas and that kind of thing. But man, it's so tough to come back and see all the empty
It is.
homes, all the empty
That's
buildings.
yeah.
It's just
That's what I saw when I came back 5 years ago. So
right. But
that's
the one thing that's
yeah,
not changed. You look at the Facebook pages and you look, people love that community. That's the one thing that's
they
not
do.
changed. It's
Yeah.
always been tight knit. They'll do anything
Yep.
for anybody. And I can see over the last year or so, 2 years, even with Connie in there, man, she did some
Yeah.
really good stuff.
She did.
And
She did.
things are starting to definitely be on the uptick to, like you said, seeing some new businesses come in. I'm really good friends with Matt Peterson and Jeremy Smith
Oh
and
yeah.
Nathan
Okay.
Mollahan and those
So
guys
the
there.
Rock and Pizza guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that was good to see them, kind of get something started there and just bringing some stuff, bringing some fresh stuff back. And the building you're talking about there on the corner of Penn and Second, that's going to be great
Yeah.
because that whole row right there, you got
Okay. Well, you know the buildings. So the ones with the old awning that needs to be torn down.
correct.
Those I do have a deal to purchase those, and
Perfect.
it's just a matter of signing the paperwork, and that awning will be burned in effigy as soon as I take possession.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, but
that'll look good. That
yeah,
whole side right there. I know they used to have a couple bars
yeah,
up through there, and then you got the
yeah,
the funeral home there on the end, but it's
yeah.
been pretty dead for the past 15 or 20 years.
Sure, and those things are set unused, and trying to save as many of the old buildings as we can. We had a couple that bought the Louis Theater, and hopefully they can salvage something out of that. But one of the things that I met with the general manager of General Mills, and before I got elected, and right after the election, I knew it was going to come in. She wanted to know what my vision was for Wellston. I said, well, and her name's Carolyn. And I said, Carolyn, when you came to town, I would like to have you drive through town and have the person sitting in next to you in the passenger seat and the two kids in the back, and look around saying, I could raise my family here.
Hmm.
And then right now, she said, well, no. And I said, no, I wouldn't move here if I wasn't from here. I drive around and look, and it's not where we need to be now, but that's where we want to go. And she moved to Chillicothe, and she moved in. But since then, we've had three of their engineers come from out of town and actually buy houses in Wellston.
Wow.
So we're starting to get a little bit better reputation. As a matter of fact, I think we're almost to the point where some people in Jackson are jealous of us, if you can believe that. So
The tides are turning a little bit, huh?
yeah, I hope so. I hope so. I mean, it's slowly but surely we're going after. We have an opioid issue. Everyone does.
Hmm.
We're going after a little bit differently though, because we can only deal with what we can only deal with the ordinances and the things we have on the books, and our hands are tied in a lot of cases. But basically, we're closing down houses that are nuisances and boarding them up.
Hmm.
We're condemning it. We're using condemnation as a way to empty them out, and they have to go someplace else. And that'd be unfortunate for surrounding communities and stuff, but we just can't let it's not fair to people that take care of their home and then on the other side, people have trashy yards, or they have drug use going on and things like that. So we created a code enforcement officer, and we tightened up some codes, and people are now mowing the grass, because if you don't mow it, I'll mow it, and I'll charge you $250 to do it.
Right.
And it only takes one or two of those, and we went from $30,000 in billings the first year down to $15,000 in billings last year.
Wow.
So half the people started mowing their grass, and that's a good thing,
Hmm.
because if you take care of your property, the people around you should have to take care of theirs as well. And so far, we've had very positive response, and people are starting to get involved. People in the neighborhoods are saying, this is going on in my neighborhood. What can you do to help? And we respond to that, and that's the marching orders to the police department, the fire department, service director, all the guys, is that we work for the people. They don't work for us. And once we start establishing that mindset, no one gets a favor. Everyone follows the same law. I told them, if I've had too many beers and you pulled me over, then drag my rear into jail just like you would anyone else. That's the way the world's supposed to work. If everyone follows the rules, we're all better off for it.
Absolutely, and it's funny you're touching on a lot of the things that I was going to ask you anyway with with the codes, and I'd read where you guys were doing like a joint operation between the Wellston police and the code, the code officer there. So that's a good thing, man. I think my folks live on Michigan Avenue, and
okay. Well, then we just took care of two places right up behind them on Wisconsin, and we do have one on Michigan we took care of 2 weeks ago, but it's over by the ballparks on that side of Michigan.
Okay.
So I don't know which side they live on. But we're gonna we'll get to them eventually.
Right.
It's just,
that, like you said, man, start somewhere. That's the thing with they live down. Well, when I go home, I still live there too. But we live down by the apartments there. Wells Manor, and it's when I was growing up, that was a place where families could live. Kids I went to school with, things were fine. But man, it's really taken a turn. You see some shady characters going in and out of there. You
got those, and you got the house trailers that are all down around where the skating rink is, and
exactly.
And it's just and we do have an ordinance that was passed before I got there that if you move a house trailer out, you can't replace it. Mm-hmm. There are no more new house trailers coming into Wellston, and we just have to continue to strengthen the ordinances to give us leverage and let folks understand. And I have nothing wrong with landlords, but what I do have a problem with is landlords that are taking advantage of people. They're taking their money and they let them live in unsafe conditions. We have several homes. I don't even know how many homes people are living in without running water. Mm-hmm. They will not turn because the water bills were let run out of control. The landlord won't pay for it. They rent a house without water, and that's the next ordinance we'll have on the books is that you cannot rent a house without running water in it because it's not humane. I mean, you got kids there and you got everything else, and it's not sanitary, and so we just need to make Wellston a nice place to live for everybody.
Absolutely,
and not just certain neighborhoods.
Very well.
And then that's what I got hired for.
Right. Well said. If people notice this stuff, say they have a neighbor who has 4 or 5 cars in their front yard, the grass is growing up, and they just don't feel like they're taking care of it. Is there a number that people can call? Maybe
they can call. They can call my office, or they can call the. Actually, you can go online to cityofwellston.org, and there's a form it's a writable PDF form that you can file a complaint, and you can do it anonymously. They can call my office at 740-384-2720. The code office, everyone's phone number is listed on our webpage. And so you can get a hold of code, you can get a hold of police, you can get a hold of service director, you can get a hold of me. But we also, our code enforcers out riding around now looking for places like that. So a lot of them we're catching. And if I see one, I'll snap a picture of it and I'll shoot it over to our code enforcement. And a lot of these things we're taking care of without people having to report them because we'll see it because a lot of people are afraid. They don't want people to. They're afraid sometimes that they don't want any trouble with the neighbors. So, and I can understand that especially if you're an elderly person, you don't want the hassle of that. So let us take care of it for you, and you can do it anonymously. And we're trying to catch it on our own too. And our police officers, another source we're using is we equipped our garbage truck with a tablet, an iPad, if you will, that links to our code enforcement, and they see every house every week. If they see something that doesn't look right, they pop the icon on that, and alert goes over to our code enforcement officer. So he knows that going to 4th Street and it's whatever number of 4th Street, there's a problem, whether it's crashing all over the place, or it's junk cars, as you said, or there's other issues, not mowing grass, that sort of thing.
Sure.
So we're trying to join this century. We're a little bit behind our operating platform we're using for our financial work. It hasn't been updated in 25 years, so It's like a Commodore 64, I think, that we're working on.
Wow, no kidding. Well, it sounds like things are starting to head in the right direction. As far as the ordinance and taking care, of the yards and things like that, I was talking to some people and letting them know, you were going to be on here, and a couple things came up, just kind of questions to ask and things like that. One, kind of deals with the cutting of the grass and things like that. It's basically the people who cut their grass, but then they blow all that grass out in the street, which makes it dangerous for, not necessarily maybe cars, but motorcycle riders. Clogging
Okay,
up the drains and things like that. What is there a code against that? Do people not understand that they shouldn't be doing that?
There's no code against it that I know of, but I'll certainly go back and research that. I don't have them all memorized yet.
Sure.
But to me, it's common sense. But sometimes I find that common sense isn't as common. Certainly, our people better not be doing it. The folks that are code enforcement mowers, but people shouldn't be doing that. And I'll go back and take a look at our code on mowing. But hopefully, it's not our folks that are blowing stuff out in the streets, because you should know better. I mean, you're right. It clogs up the drains. And it's really dangerous. I have a bike, and it is dangerous for motorcycles for sure. So I will take a note and go back and take a look at that.
And as far as there's always the pothole issues and the street pavement. Any plans on that? Anything in the budget to kind of continue working on getting those better?
Yeah, I like to tell people I leave potholes so people won't speed down their streets, but that doesn't go over very well. But yes, we just the places that make the asphalt just fired up just in the last few weeks because of the virus and because of the temperatures and stuff. And our Durapatcher was out. I saw him today, even though it was raining. So we are starting to do hot patches again, and we're also doing the Durapatch sealer, which the state of Ohio uses a little bit better way than just throwing cold patch on something. But we're working with a company out of Logan who does engineering and also grant writing about working on a 10-year infrastructure plan that would address our water lines, our sewer lines, and both sanitary and storm sewers, and also the streets. Because the last thing I want to do is do a bunch of water, pave a street, and then have to cut it back up to do the water and sewer lines. So we'll do it a section at a time, and the state, a lot of the grant money has dried up this year because of what this virus has done to the economy. But we need new water lines and sewer lines underneath the streets, and we'll do it a neighborhood at a time or a section at a time. It's about $130,000 to pave a quarter mile of street, and we have 32 miles of street. So, and we can't tax the folks anymore. We only have a certain segment. Majority of Wellston do not work. They're either retired or they're on some other sort of or a subsidy. So the taxpayers we do have, we can't really tax them anymore. We do have a street levy. Our street levy would not pave an eighth of a mile of street by itself. We bring in about $70,000 to the street levy. But what we do is we save up money for matching because a grant is a grant situation is 20% matched. If I get a $1 million grant, I have to pay $200,000. When I say I, it's the city. So I'd have to have $200,000 to get $1 million grant. The one project we're looking at over on one of the main streets is roughly a half a mile long. Water lines, sewer lines, both sanitary and storm, and paving the street has come in at $4.5 million. So that's an $800,000 match. And that's a lot of money for Wellston. That would be over probably, I'm thinking, close to 10% of our operating budget, which that doesn't leave a lot of money to do anything else. But we'll get it lined out. There's different ways to do it, and we'll start, and we'll do the main entries into town first. We're going to do the state highways are taken care of by the state, and they're in good shape. But we look at Broadway, we look at 2nd Street, we look at on where it comes off Finley Chapel that way. We look at Mulga Road and coming in on 10th Street, because those are arteries where people cut through to get to downtown. We'll work on those first, and then we'll work the secondary streets like Michigan and New York and Wisconsin and those streets as they fit into the plan. And hopefully this plan will be entrenched to where once I'm gone, it'll just be perpetual. We know got X amount of money that's going to be spent on this, and next year it's this, and next year it's that. We're working on replacing a water tank that leaks. We have no idea how much water leaks out of it. So There's just like a lot of balls in the air, but we're working on that, and that's that. As I talked to the senior citizens group, and they're always funny because they ask about potholes and this and that. I said the things we have to do as a city for you is if you turn on your spigot, water comes out that you can drink. If you go flush your commode, it goes somewhere. It goes down the drain. You don't have to deal with that. You drive through town, you don't want to lose your undercarriage on your car with potholes. If your house catches on fire, we need to come and put it out, and you got to feel safe at night. Those 5 things are what we have to do as a city, provide you as a city, and we do each of them, but in various degrees of success. And what we need to do is be hitting on all cylinders, and that's what we're focused on as a city.
It's definitely a good start. I like hearing that.
Yeah.
I know the people like hearing that too.
Yeah.
As far as like the car washes in Wellston, so there's just countless car washes, right? And they haven't worked for I don't know how long. What's
the owner of the car washes will he never returned my phone call. I've tried to reach out to him, whether that he wanted to sell it or tried to sell it for him or find out. But he is adamant he's not going to open those car washes up. And I've had a couple of folks that have thought about opening their own, but they're afraid that he'll restart those. You can't seize private property, and you just can't. And it's really unfortunate. And to me, it's a black eye on the city. Just to have those things sitting there and deteriorating. Now, if he doesn't keep them clean, and if he doesn't keep the weed eat and all those things, we will go in and do that, and he'll be charged the same amount as if we mow a yard. But he just will not. He will not move off those things, and it's a shame because those things would. As a business person, I know what those things would generate in profit. I mean, it's unexplainable. It really is, and I know him. It was a couple of years. He actually may have graduated with your mother, but he just will not. He would just not do anything with it.
And as aesthetically, so if you're coming in from Jackson or Rio Grande area, man, and that's the first thing you see, it's like,
absolutely,
that's your introduction to the town.
Yes, it is, and it's like, and it's yes, I agree wholeheartedly, and if there was something I could do about it, believe me, I would. And if anything ever changed, I just can't even think of what kind of ordinance to write that would cover that, and because again, people have the right to do things, and it's not government's role to tell you have to run a business or have to do something for business. As long as you maintain it and it's not a health hazard, there's really our hands are tied. I wish I could do something about it. I wish he would sell them, or I would help market it for him if he'd sell them. So, but that's probably the top 5 questions or complaints I get is, why don't you do something about those car washes? And I just can't. And there's no one. County can't. State can't. You can't take people's property away from them. And I wouldn't want to be in a place where someone could come in and say, "Well, I don't like your house. I'm going to take it away from you."
Oh, absolutely.
So, but if I ever get an opportunity to get, if there's ever an opportunity for me to cause those to open or be sold, then I would certainly take it.
Very well, very well. You touched on the Louis building a little bit. That was kind of one of my questions I had. Is any update on that? Are the folks still in there working? Are they trying to bring that to fruition?
They sort of went off path. They bought the old Hamden MacArthur or the Hamden hardware store, and I questioned that when Louis was sitting there. But I did talk with the owner. He's now the mayor of MacArthur. And he's going to take the marquee down within the next week or two. So at least that was a commitment we made, because right now it's a great nesting place for pigeons, and you wouldn't want to walk underneath it. Plus, it's just unsightly. So I don't know what he's going to do. He's cleaned it out. It's secure. He's taken the roof off, so it's not blowing all over cars all over town. But there's no roof on it, and there's nothing in the interior of it. And I don't know how he's going to fund a new roof. I hope he finds a mechanism to do it. I know the plan was to do a community theater. He had a couple focus groups together. I sat in on one of them. And everyone has great ideas, but it's a matter of funding. I would think it'd be $150,000 to put a roof on a building that size, because there's nothing there except the steel trusses that go across where the roof was. They had to take it completely down. So,
Wow.
and now that the weather is, absent this rain, is changing, I'm hoping that it will roll up the sleeves and can do a little bit more to it. But it's going to be a work in progress. It's going to take a long time for that to come back.
And I think
it's a shame.
And you touched on it there a little bit. I think people see this stuff and it's like, man, let's get these houses torn down. Let's get this out of there. Let's get that out of there. And I think they don't really realize how much money that stuff takes.
Well, it's to tear down a house is about anywhere from $7,000 to $10,000, depending on the asbestos. We just finally tore down the building that was down by Lee's restaurant, the one that was Bailey's Tire when I was younger. And we just finally got that torn down, and that cost us several $1,000s as a city, which we'll never recoup. The old post office cafe downtown cost us several. That was outrageous amount of money there to tear that down, which we will never really recoup. And we only have limited income, and it doesn't go up every year. And of course, inflation. Everything we buy does go up. So, yes, we'd like if I had a ballpark $200,000 to $300,000, I could get rid of most of the blighted houses in our town, but I don't. So, we have a limited budget, and we tear down the worst ones, and we're trying to work different angles to take over bad ones. That a lot of our places. People died, and their heirs don't even know they own a house, and they just sit empty. I guess there's one on Michigan where the lady died. I guess that's a little bit farther down towards the south Michigan from where the parents live, and it's a nice-looking 2-story house. It's sat empty for 3 or 4 years, and no one's claimed it.
Wow.
And the lady's been dead, and it's just sitting there, and it's going to fall into disrepair over the years, like anything will. But if someone had it now, I'm trying to figure out how we could get a hold of that somehow and be a pass-through to some, like a young couple that's looking for a house, and to be, okay, take it over for whatever back taxes are and redo it, and you've got your house for $10,000 or $15,000, and you can turn around and flip it in a couple of years and triple your money and go buy a bigger house.
Right.
So that's we're looking at those things because. Just trying anything, trying to throw anything against the wall, see what sticks and what makes better. We do have a couple of young couples that are coming in and buying houses and flipping them, and that's great. And and we should encourage that. I have nothing against landlords. I do have a problem against people taking advantage. But we have almost 400 rental properties in town.
Wow.
And I know it's crazy. So. And that does not include apartments. Those are just houses.
Wow, and that's a town of about what, 5,600 people or so?
5,600 people. We have 2,300 water customers. So it's about 20-25% of our town's rental properties.
Wow,
not counting apartments.
That's crazy.
It is crazy, and that completely has flipped since I went to school, since the 70s.
We were talking early on about new businesses and things coming uptown, and I miss those days of Brenner's Store and Sundry and News and Purdue's, going into Purdue's and getting chocolate covered raisins and like those days. Man, that's what I grew up with. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that bounce back a little bit, and it sounds like it is.
The kids over at the Rusted Barn. You probably remember it was a hardware store. It was originally like the Jerry from Jerry's Do It Center actually ran a hardware store down there. It's on the corner of Railroad and Broadway, where the Masonic Lodge is.
Right.
They opened up the Rusted Barn, which is sort of like eclectic stuff, like something you see on HGTV. And they put a beauty shop in one corner, and now there's going to be a nostalgic toy shop in between. So that's kind of a cool thing that's opening up, and so they're sort of populating that block, and there's two or three storefronts that we'd like to get a hold of that are just sitting dormant. The owner's not doing anything with. The 3 extra buildings that hopefully I'll be able to take up. I think that I don't think you'll ever see a shoe store again, like in Wellston, like Winkler's was, and I don't even know if that's before your time, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. It's where the Rocket Pizza Boys are. Okay. All that burned down and fell in, but like I see a market for different, unique things, like the ladies at our senior citizen center quilt every Wednesday. I'd like to take one of their storefronts and make it a quilt shop. And where they can just come in and sell their quilts. I don't even care if I get rent out. I mean, just come in and make a little business if someone wants to rent it and do it that way. Or because I think that the only thing that we've got going for us in Southern Ohio, and I'm just on a Zoom call with mayors and people from the Boynton School over at OU, is that we need to quit trying to get a Toyota plant in Jackson County or Southern Ohio. It's not going to happen. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have good rail. We don't have a river. We don't have major interstate highways. But what we do have is natural resources. We have lakes. We have hills. We have woods. We have abandoned rail lines that just cry out for bike paths and hiking trails. And we also are in proximity with Hocking Hills, which has 4 million people a year visit it. So why aren't we going after tourism dollars? And for tourism dollars, you need to have little places to eat. You have to have little quirky shops that people want to go and wander around with. Before I moved back to Ohio, I lived down in southern West Virginia. I was near Lewisburg. And if you've ever been to Lewisburg, West Virginia, it's got coffee shops. It's got bakeries. It's just a little thing. And you can't drive down the street in the summer for people walking around to all these shops and doing things. I've talked with the guy that owns the railroad now, and I asked him, I said, why don't you get a couple of passenger cars? You go from, I think he goes from up around Circleville all the way past Jackson. Get a couple of passenger cars and stop, to do weekend runs all the way down and back and have stops where people can get off at these little towns like Hampton and MacArthur, places like that, and get on and get off and use your rail system for a passenger car system. I mean, he thinks I'm nuts, but a lot of people do. But I just think I just think tourism is cheap. We already have the woods and we already have lakes. I can just imagine if we cleaned out Raccoon Creek from Logan all the way down to Rio Grande for kayaking and canoes.
Right.
I mean, out west, Raccoon Creek would be a major river. But it's called a creek here. Right. But there's so much different things you can do, and that's the drum I'm beating when I'm talking with folks. Well, what we need in Southern Ohio, rather than trying to get a factory, because there's so much industrial stuff to the north of us. There's no reason for them to come this far south. Right.
That's true.
Yeah.
I like the idea of the opening up bike paths and hiking trails and being here. That's a big thing here. Everybody's outside all the time. I mean, I get the weather here is different than there, but people take advantage of that stuff.
And people go out in cold weather. I mean, the people are using our bike path in cold weather. Open up trails for snowmobiles and stuff like that. ATVs, all that stuff.
Yeah, take advantage of that land that you have for sure. And there's a lot of beauty down there that people don't realize.
Absolutely, there absolutely is. And we just need to get enough folks together and talk with the other mayors about regionalization and banding together. There's 800,000 people in Southern Ohio District from Adams County up past Marietta, and if we all got together, that's a pretty big voting block. That's bigger than downtown. That's bigger than Cleveland. Cleveland only has 600,000 people now.
Wow.
So.
You know what? I would like to see more stuff take place out at Lake Alma. That's a beautiful lake, but I think it has that stigma of, it's dirty. People might, it's dirty. We don't want to go out there.
There's a lot of folks out there. I go out there. I drive out around there every night, and there's a lot of people fishing and stuff like that. But they drain it down every year, so it can't be dirty. They drain it almost down to try to take that vegetation. I would like to get it back from the state, to be honest with you. And you do know that Wellston owns Lake Alma. But the state has like a 99-year lease.
Right.
Yeah, but that'd be a cool thing, because I would open up more camping, more trails, and just sort of blow it out. So I've even thought about trying to do camping around the strip mine out there.
Oh yeah, that'd be nice.
So it's open. I mean, there's spots out there where you could do a campground, you'd have fishing and stuff like that. So, I mean, there's lots of different things you go after, but to me, we're missing the boat on the tourism aspect.
I agree. I agree 100%. Hocking Hills, growing up, we would go out there 3 or 4 times a year. And even when I'm home now, we usually make at least one trip out that way. And it's just grown and grown. And, there's more cabins now to stay in. And there's a lot of stuff around there.
Yep. And they started out with the same type of hills we have.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So.
Well, let's see. Let's go to the pandemic has obviously caused a lot of destruction. A lot of kids who are seniors in high school missing their last 3 or 4 months and graduations and things like that. What with everything going on, I know the kids there just graduated. They had kind of an abbreviated graduation, if I'm not mistaken, where a few people could come across with them, and then they did this like cruise in for the graduates. Can you talk a little bit about that and how those events went?
Yeah, that's. I take credit for about everything, but I don't take credit for that. That was the parents of the seniors, and that actually was Matt and Nathan and Jeremy down at Rocket Pizza. They set up. They had a DJ, and of course Nathan's son graduated this year, Rylan, and they got together with some other parents, and I don't have the whole list, so I'm sure someone will get mad at me. But they got together and wanted to do a cruise in, since it started out as being a parade. They thought, well, the social distance, so let's do something different. Because Wellston was known for years, people cruised around the block.
Absolutely.
When I was younger, I did it. Every generation did it. They just cruised around the block. So they got the DJ. They had it set up on their patio, and they all met at the old Kroger lot, which unfortunately is no longer a Kroger. And they paraded around. We blocked off the intersection so they could get started, and they came around the block. And as they came around the block, they slowed down the procession, and the DJ named the senior, and the senior would wave, and everyone would applaud all the way up Ohio Avenue. And they made 2 or 3 trips around, and it was abbreviated, but I bet we had, gosh, I was estimating 200, 250 people downtown, just lining the streets to watch the seniors. And don't tell the governor, but I don't think social distancing was really observed very well. But I think there was a lot of family units, but it's hard to manage that many folks together, and I wasn't going to try. But the kids seem to love it. As a matter of fact, well, I think what we're going to do next year is try to incorporate it into our alumni weekend. Everyone comes in on Memorial Day, and they have an alumni banquet and things. But I think we're going to try to do that with the graduating senior class from now on. So the class of 2020, they didn't have everything they should have had this year, but they did set a tradition that they can carry on, and they look back and say, we started that type thing, and they start doing this annually. Yeah. It was just really cool for the kids.
Absolutely. I like that idea. And you talked about the alumni weekend. That's one thing that always brought in a lot of, a lot of money to the city, to the goal line and the pizza shops and places like that. And to have that, those thousands of people that aren't coming back in, that's got to be a big blow to those businesses.
Yeah, we're losing as a city. We'll lose probably, I'd say, close to $250,000 in revenue, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less from our sales tax and from income tax and the gas tax. And it's going to hurt. And the stimulus package or bailout or whatever you want to call it really doesn't address small cities. It addresses cities of 500,000 or more, and that's not us. Right. So there's really no. They're looking at it in phase 4. I've talked with Congressman Johnson, and he's fighting the battle. He's out of Marietta, so all his cities are small, and he's working at it on Washington's level. Our Representative Stevens is at the State House. He's working on it for us up there to see if there's anything that the state can provide. Although the state's in as much trouble as we are, and because that revenue, we still have the expenses, although we don't have the revenue. So, and we're not in as bad a shape as some other places. I don't know what Athens is going to do without Ohio University. And now they're talking about doing a virtual fall class, and that'll just kill Athens.
Yeah, so, unfortunately, I think this is something that's going to take a few years for us to bounce fully back from, if we ever bounce fully back.
I think you'll see a lot of things, a lot of different things change. I think you'll see a lot of businesses never make it back. I think you'll see new businesses come online. I think one of the opportunities in taking it, you always try to. Well, I can't remember. I think it was Rahm Emanuel said, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." Is that one of the things that we could see out of this is maybe some of these people that move to Columbus might not want to be in these big cities because they seem to be the hardest hit. And if we can get enough quality broadband down here, maybe they can, more people would stay in these areas and work at home, and maybe you can stimulate your economy by not having the best and brightest move to a big city and sort of keep them down on the farm, so to speak. If we can get enough decent restaurants and enough activities for folks to do, that they would stay down here. Because I don't think very many people are going to visit New York for a while.
I agree.
And I don't think very many people want to live in New York, given how rapidly that spread across that city. And it does, density of population was the biggest growth factor for this virus.
Right.
I think that's why we haven't seen the massive surge that a lot of folks have. A lot of our folks do social distancing with the mask, do the mask and all that, but I think it's more because the sparsity of the population as well.
I was going to ask about that. Do you feel like the people of the town did a good job of taking precautions?
I think we did I think it's a varying scale. I think when there was all the talk about the surge and overrunning hospitals, and then they saw how New York exploded, I think everyone did a great job because I think that was the fear factor. I think we're on where we are right now is there's a lot of skepticism because the surge didn't happen. Now, the argument is, well, if we didn't do what we did, there would have been a surge. But since there wasn't a surge, it's like a chicken egg type thing, which came first. But I think the governor did the right thing the way he locked it down. I don't think anyone would argue with that. I think it's getting harder to control because I think weather's changed. It's got nice. People are cooped up. We haven't seen any deaths in Jackson County, thank God.
Right.
Or Benton County. I think maybe one out of Gallia County, but I'm not sure. So people are thinking, well, this is like the flu. Well, it's not like the flu. If you catch it, I guarantee you won't think it's like the flu if you're the ones that are severely impacted. There are people that catch it and don't have the symptoms, but if your body is not ready to fight it off, you're going to think it's not the flu. And the biggest concern is not me getting it, it's who I give it to. Do I give it to my 83-year-old mom? If she passed away, God forbid, or do I give it to one of my kids? And who will they give it to, and how it multiplies so much? So I just think right now I don't see the sense of urgency for all the social distancing steps that I did before. I think that's sort of the nature of our population because you get into Southern Ohio, everybody's rough and they think they're rednecks sometimes, and
Exactly.
they think and it can't hurt me, and you're right. It may not hurt me, but it might hurt the person I'm talking to, or I shake hands with, or I get in contact with. So you just got to keep hoping and wishing and praying for a vaccine.
Exactly.
As soon as possible.
I work at a hospital here, and we got an influx. It kind of ran rampant through our department where they almost had to shut our, I do physical therapy. They almost had to shut our department down for a couple weeks because, it kind of just started spreading through. We had coworkers who tested positive, and then this big cluster happened at our hospital, and it really made some major headlines that, they were being more reactive instead of being proactive, and it was too late. But luckily, the death toll here on Maui has been pretty low. I know in the state it's, I think it's probably in triple digits, which is unfortunate. That's one's one too many. But I think they've been able, they've shut down pretty much all the travel in. They don't want people coming in, tourism or anything like that. And that's big here because I think tourism brought in $18 billion last year to the island. So
absolutely. I mean, you're definitely a destination. So yeah, absolutely.
Right. So a lot of people, the way they've been kind of doing the distancing thing, it's been weird here where pretty much every shop, if you go into a Walmart or a Target or whatever, you have to wear a mask. which I think, don't be that person who, why do I have to wear one? Just wear one. Like, it's just, you put a mask over your face for 30 minutes at most. Is that really going to kill you?
Right.
I don't get that. But we've been, been able to go to the beaches. We've been able to hike. They just want us to keep distance and things like that. So, and, weather's always nice here. So you can still get out and do your thing.
Sure.
I couldn't imagine being cooped up in a city where it's 15 degrees and you can't get out and get that fresh air and you can't go out walking. And so hopefully, now that the weather's breaking and things are starting to get a little warmer, these these guidelines will still be followed, but people can still get out because if you're cooped up inside for so long, your body's going to be more susceptible anyway to this stuff. You got to get exercise, you got to get sunlight, you got to get moving.
Well, you're not you've been away from Southern Ohio too long. You don't have to get exercise there. You just need.
I don't know if you've noticed, but during the whole interview, you couldn't tell I'm from Southern Ohio because I haven't used the word bud. I don't know if you did.
Or crick or wash your hands.
Now my podcast is the Hey Buddy podcast, right?
Okay.
That's my mom and my dad. They always say, hey buddy, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But anytime you come back to Wellston, you got a hey bud. You get that long drawn out bud. So
yes, absolutely.
That's funny.
That's what makes us unique, I guess.
Exactly, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
One more thing I wanted to kind of ask you about was sports and things like that with everything getting canceled. And are there any plans for any, once this does open back up, is there going to be any kind of, I don't even know how you could get to...
Rec League, the governor yesterday opened up, I think it was yesterday. It was yesterday or Friday, opened up the Little Leagues and Rec Leagues, but he wants everyone to wear a mask and not to share equipment. And I don't know how you handle baseball with 18 kids. And so our folks, the Make Wellston Beautiful folks around the Rec Leagues, have not got an official word yet whether they've canceled or not. They've kicked around the idea just to wait and doing their fall ball just to start in mid-August instead of in September. They just cancel the June, July. They would have been halfway through their season now. Typically, they start their season at the 1st of May, and they've been halfway through by now. And they did cancel the spring sports, just like all the high schools and stuff did. But I don't know. It would be nice if they would, because I know the kids need something to do and to get them out. And we have to start doing things that get us back to a new normal. And I would hope that they'll be able to run something, but that's up to them. They actually lease our ball fields from us, so that it's one less expense that the city has, and they do a good job with it. But I would hope that we would get back to it. Jackson, I don't think is going to do a rec league this year, and I know a lot of it. Chillicothe is, and Athens is, so there are some people that are doing it. And travel ball teams are starting to work out and things under the new guidelines, hoping that they'll be relaxed as the summer goes on.
Sure.
And then, of course, everyone's got their fingers crossed that colleges will fire up, and then we'll have Ohio State beating Michigan again.
Well, that's a given. That's the only way Michigan wins is if that game doesn't happen. So,
or if they fire the coach, they hire Luke Fickle.
Right.
That was the last time.
I know, man. I was at that game. That was a long time ago.
Yes, it was. Like 3,692 days or something crazy like that.
I'm gonna edit all this out, right?
That's fine. I was gonna start casting pretty soon, so you'd have to edit it all.
Well, talking about football, is there any update on the new football field there? I know they had talked about raising some funds to build a new field. Is that something?
They raised funds to build a track. They're not going to build a football field. They got enough money to build a track, and I think that's where it's going to end. Okay. I don't know why. I know why, because there's a bunch of old guys like me that want to keep the old field, I guess. But I don't care. I think it's silly to have that new facility out there and not have it. That locker room is no different than not very much different from them when I went to school. Mm-hmm. And it's like a shame, because if you go to Jackson's got a field that a small college would love to have.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you've been down there.
Yes, sir.
It's crazy. And for us to have what we have, and the field itself's okay, but just the facilities, it's just not modern. They should have done it. Again, I'm not involved in the schools. I got enough stuff to deal with, but But if I had to vote, I would vote for a new field. So I don't see that in the near future. I talked with Karen about that. She said all they need is money, and so of course everyone can say that. And then they lost probably a couple $100,000 in funding just because of this virus and the cuts they made to school systems. So
Wow.
I don't know the exact amount, but I know it was pretty substantial.
Right.
So.
And I know we're still a few months away from the fair and from Ohilco and things like that. Any thoughts on that? Anything? Have you been tossing around ideas if that's going to still happen?
The fair is going to do the junior fair animal sale, but they've already announced they're not going to do the midway. They're not going to do the grandstand events. So that's all gone by the wayside. The Ohilco folks, they're still meeting and talking about it. And we also do, the Main Street group does a big fireworks show now. It's the first time we've had fireworks. This is our third year, but we brought fireworks back to town for the first time in a decade almost.
Wow.
And it's we're meeting at the end of the month to discuss that. I know the surrounding communities, Jackson and Benton County, has canceled theirs, but we haven't as of yet, and we'll see where it goes. Because we do like a one-day festival downtown with the food vendors and activities and the band and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We may end up doing just fireworks and going into a location where everyone doesn't gather, just they can sit on the front porch and watch it. Because I think we have to start getting back to a normal. It may not be the old normal, but a different way of doing things. But you just can't. People, if you just see the people Saturday night with this cruise around, people sit there for a half an hour after the kids quit cruising.
Yeah.
Just sitting there just because they just wanted to be out.
Sure.
And I think that Apple Festival's up in the air. That's Jackson. I really don't care that much about what they do, but just to let you know, regionally, that's what's going on.
Sure. Now, going back to the cruise in there, didn't they have a thing a few weeks back where it was just cruise the block? Like a lot of people got in their cars and cruised the block there in Wellston?
It was. Yeah, they I don't know how many people. The downside of it was pouring down rain.
Ah.
So it seems to be the recent fad is that now everyone wants to do the cruise thing, and that's fine with me. I don't care. I think that's great. And if people want to start doing that. The other thing that's going on during this that I think is an upside. Rocket Pizza has an outside patio, so you have people setting out. And then Viva Jalisco, I don't know if you've seen it or not, it's their Mexican restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
He had his tables out on the sidewalk too, and I think sidewalk dining and stuff like that, if we can get that downtown, I think that's great. So if there's an upside to this, maybe that's it. And if you got people sitting outside, you typically have people driving around. So
right, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. So, but one thing we're not going to do anymore is we were doing First Fridays where you had an activity. They did Zumba outside, and they got me doing Zumba. That's not happening anymore.
Done with that, huh?
Yeah, done that, about died. That was the end of that. Not only am I uncoordinated, I'm completely out of shape. So
you're not going to be breaking out those softball spikes anytime soon, huh?
No, sir. Most activity I get is swinging a golf club occasionally anymore. That's about it.
That's funny. Well, to wrap up, I mean, I appreciate you coming on. This has been fun. Just doing some banter back and forth. I obviously, I don't think I'd ever spoken to you before, but reached out to you there on Facebook and going back and forth. I really appreciate your timely responses and you agreeing to do this. Is there anything that you'd like to say to the people of Wellston, that might be listening to this, just anything?
Well, I think what I would like to say to the people of Wellston, it's your town. It's only going to be as good as you make it. This is not a one-person job to make this place better. I need people to be involved. If you don't want to run for office, I understand that, but get involved. Stick up for your town. Help your neighbor out. If you need something, call us for it. And we may have to call on you for things, but the town's only going to be as good as the citizens want it to be. And that would be sort of the way I've been going about it, and that's what we need. I mean, we need everyone to pull together and make Wellston better. Doesn't mean it's bad, but I think it can always be better.
I agree. Very well said. Very well said. Well, again, sir, I thank you for coming on, and I'm sure I'll be in touch with you back and forth on some.
Next time you're in town, look me up. Go out and adult beverage or something.
Well, I'm not a drinker, but I'll still,
Okay.
I'll still go out with you.
I don't smoke, so we're not going down that road.
Very good, sir. And I will let you know when I put this out. It'll probably be here in a couple weeks. And again, I appreciate it.
That'd be great. Okay.
All right.
Pleasure talking to you.
You too.
Okay.
Go blue. Go blue.
Bye
Bye bye. There you go, guys. That was my interview with Wellston Mayor Charlie Hudson. Again, I want to thank Mayor Hudson for coming on and talking to me a little bit about Wellston and some things that are in the pipeline there, and some good ideas that he had. It seems like Wellston's in a really good spot right now as far as leadership goes. I hope we can continue that, and you guys get out there and support the local businesses. One thing we touched on in the interview was how that small town community people still come together and support each other, and I hope that continues, especially now that businesses are starting to open back up. Let's get this stigma away from Wellston that's been there for a while, man. Let's, I know all you guys listening from Wellston have varying opinions. Those who have left Wellston have varying opinions. But for me, it was a fun place to grow up. I know as a kid you don't really know any better, but, growing up in the 80s and 90s, fun place to grow up. There was always something to do. Get your buddies out for a bike ride, head out to the lake, go for hikes, things like that. It's far from that, and I know times have changed. And small towns aren't going to be like that anymore because of technology and because of different opportunities. But there's no reason that Wellston can't bounce back a little bit and turn this ship around. And I hope you guys are a part of that and a part of helping that happen. So again, guys, thank you for the continued support. Thank you for listening to this episode, and to all you guys who purchase shirts to help out, not only with the podcast, but also to benefit ALS research and the ALS Association. I really appreciate it. I was blown away by the amount of people who contributed, the amount of people who bought shirts. Those shirts should be delivered in the next 2.5 weeks, and then I'll get those to you guys as soon as I can. My folks are actually going to be helping me distribute those. But again, I thank you guys for that. I also want to give a couple shout outs. Some guys that I haven't thanked on the show that I should have. I finally have all my shows up on YouTube as well. You can go under and look under Brent Ewing, Hey Buddy. You can find him on there. The background, the banner background for that was created by a friend of mine, Dan Keck. Dan did a great job. I just out of nowhere, he sent me this and said, hey, if I made this up, if you would like to use it. And I thought that was really nice touch. I really appreciate that, Dan. Thank you for doing that. Also wanted to give a shout out to Jason Eberts and Matt Eberts at Green Bright Lawn Care. Give them a call, man. They specialize in lawn care and landscaping. They do a great job. If you guys need any assistance in that area, I think they also, if I'm not mistaken, do in the wintertime, they do snow removal and things like that. So give them a call at 740-352-0820. And again, guys, thank you all for all your support. And as long as you guys keep listening, I'm going to keep putting these out there. So until next time, guys, thanks for listening to Brent Ewing's Hey Buddy podcast.